Coming up in this episode of Shadowcast, we're at the Gfinity Arena for F1 eSports, travelling through the ages with McLaren's F1 cars and games, our sim racing school's back with the class on Overtaking. To celebrate the Logitech G Challenge European Finals, here's your chance to win a care package courtesy of Logitech G, which includes the G920 racing wheel, the C922 Pro Stream webcam, and the Pro Gaming headset. And Matt Gallagher from WTF1 is here with us in the studio to chat and to take on our R Factor 2 Hot Lap Challenge. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Shadowcast, the monthly show where we talk Shadow Project happenings, sim racing tips, and give grand intros to our guests. Can I get a drum roll, please? Joining us in the studio today, his YouTube channel has more star turns from F1 drivers than a Sky Sports pit walk. He's driven a real F1 car and only did a little bit of a cry afterwards. And he's the voice of F1 eSports. It's Matt Gallagher from WTF1! Thank you so much for joining me.
Hello,
How's it going?
thank you for having me. Yeah, good. It's good to be here. It's nice little set you got here.
Oh, thank you very much. We're all very big fans of your channel here, Matt. For people who might not be familiar with it, could you tell us a bit about what you do on it?
Wow, okay. So WTF1, we're known as the world's fastest growing motorsport community. I front the YouTube channel as presenter and we do all sorts of stuff. We do fun, comedic things. We just like to have fun with our content, do something a little bit different to mainstream F1 media. We're fans at the end of the day and we just like to have fun.
Absolutely, and it definitely comes across. And you know, the channel is taking you to some crazy places across the world. What are some of your personal highlights?
Oh gosh, that is difficult because there are a lot of highlights and I've been very lucky to have them. I mean, the first year I think for me was probably the most impactful because 2017 I was taken on as presenter in sort of February, and I think within the first week we went to the Mercedes car launch and I was told that I had to interview Lewis Hamilton, and that was the first thing that was the proper kind of realisation of what I'd got myself into. But there's loads of things. You know, we went to Bahrain this year. I've done so many cool things. It's difficult to sound like I'm not bragging, but it is really cool. I had a Monaco hot lap with Nico Hulkenberg back in 2017. There's been quite a few things.
Honestly, brag away. Like, I'm giving you the platform.
I don't want to.
So on the topic of driving a real F1 car, like we've seen Richard Hammond have a go and it didn't go very well. Can you talk about your experience doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of stick for talking about my F1 drive, feeling, oh, you drove an F1 car? You know, there's always that stick for me, but I don't actually talk about it ever. It's usually everyone else telling other people and I don't say anything. But driving the F1 car was without a doubt the greatest experience I've ever had. It was a 3-day experience, but the actual driving of the car was mind-blowing. I think about it a lot, you know, when I go to bed and just appreciate the position I'm in, and it was just something I can't describe, and as you mentioned in the intro, I cried a bit.
No, that's fine. Like, we appreciate someone who's in tune with their emotions. So then to take it into the simulator world, do you play a lot of racing sims at home?
I've got a sim at home.
Yeah.
I don't have so much time anymore, purely because the job that I do at the moment. It is fun to go back on it and relive the competitive spirit that I used to have back in the day when I used to race in racing leagues and things like that. So it definitely is kind of a nice nostalgic feeling to go back on the simulator, although my competitive spirit is just saying in my head, you're not as good as you used to be, pack it in. But yeah, it is good fun.
So we talked a little bit about your experience on F1 eSports as well. What do you think of McLaren's lineup this year?
I thought you might ask that.
What gave you that idea?
Yeah, I mean, Bono and Enzo are absolutely fantastic drivers, and you've got Alec van der Waal as well, isn't it? I don't think he's been given as much of an opportunity at the moment, but that's because Bono and Enzo are so good. You know, they're such sort of cross-platform sim racers, and I think that if there was a competition within F1 eSports where they had to go through different platforms, they probably would dominate it. But alas, it is the F1 game by Codemasters, and it's a very difficult game to get to the absolute peak of. But I'd like to see them, you know, up there winning. They've been close. I remember Abu Dhabi, I think it was Bono, he had a technical issue where he didn't have sound for the last race or something and still managed to finish P3, and that secured McLaren an unbelievable result for last year. So there's things like that where those guys are really good, and I'd like to see, if they get more time maybe, to to sort of challenging the Ferrari guys and the Red Bull guys.
Totally. And so how have you seen the sim racing world like transform since you took an interest in it?
Wow, a lot. From a forum, I remember being part of Apex Racing League, it was called back in 2010 maybe. Yeah, it would have been F1 2010 release. And that was just a forum, we'd rock up on a Wednesday or a Sunday and race, and I'd still be as competitive as if £1 million was on the line. To see it go from there, where I was dreaming of it getting to the mainstream, television, YouTube, whatever, to now see it with F1 eSports. I put some really embarrassing tweets out saying, this was when F1 eSports had been announced, but we didn't know who was going to be part of the show, and I'd just put tweets out like, anyone like to see me, potentially in the show? Please like. Really embarrassing, but it was that passion and wanting to get involved with it that eventually worked, because they saw that they couldn't get me off their emails.
Oh, so it's nice to see it all worked out anyway, despite the humbling from social media.
Yes.
Right, well, we're about to see plenty more F1 eSports now as we head to Gfinity Arena for a look behind the scenes at the Pro Series. Before we do though, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. Hello, I'm here at Event 2 of the F1 eSports series here at the Gfinity Arena in London. I've never been to one of these races before, so I'm super excited. I'm also here a day early to take a behind-the-scenes peek at the production and also talk to our favourites, Bono and Enzo. Obviously, not biased at all.
First things first, I caught up with Rob from Formula 1 to talk eSports, real racing, and whether they're inevitably going to collide sometime in the future.
Formula 1 is obviously the pinnacle of motorsport. Have you had any challenges trying to maintain that reputation in esports?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. When we entered esports for the first time, just over 24 months ago, there was a feeling that if we were going to do it, we needed to do it properly, and it needed to be really the elite level esports competition in the world. So a lot of that comes through our sort of acquisition phase when we open up the competition for gamers to enter online. In 2019, we had over 109,000 people participate. So when you have that volume of people trying to enter your competition, you know that you've got a good chance of really getting the best of the best. And I think that comes across in the events, the quality of drivers we have, the quality of the shows we put together, and also it helps the quality of talent we have. We've had Lando Norris down here a couple of times, who's really great at elevating the shows as well.
How long do you think it will be until we see some sim racing drivers transition their way into traditional motorsport?
Well, I'd say that sort of process is kind of already beginning in a way. I think a lot of the people who are watching this will be familiar with what Enzo did at Race of Champions last year in Mexico, where he beat Lucas di Grassi in a real car. So it's testament to how transferable the skills are. The rigs that the guys race on behind us here are very, very similar in terms of the skill set. I think when you look at other esports in football or other sports, the skills aren't necessarily transferable, whereas here they really, really are. So McLaren are one of the teams who have done a great job of making that transition, but definitely some of the guys who compete here 100% have those skills to make it in motorsport, and that's been shown by Enzo.
So Paul, you're head of esports here at Gfinity. Could you tell me a little bit more about that role and what you do here?
Sure, so I look after making sure the whole event runs from start to finish. And unlike traditional sports, we have a lot more inputs. So we take something like football, you have a bunch of cameras round the pitch, and that's really all they take care of. Here we have to take a feed from every single rig, so we have 20 inputs purely from the drivers alone. We then have multiple cameras around that. We then have to bring that all together, mux it into one central place, put it through multiple replay machines so we can continually catch it. We then circulate that around the broadcast, we put that up to the cloud, we peer-to-peer to BT Tower and make sure linear broadcast can pick that up. We also send it into multiple CDNs so that we can pick it up in places like Twitch and Facebook and YouTube. Last but not least, we also have to give all the feeds back to the adjudication room. So behind the stage here, we have a team of about 30 people monitoring every single input at all times in real time and catching any drivers, shall we say, breaking the rules.
Sounds nerve-wracking, but how about the competitors? Fresh from the driver briefings, I had a quick word with Shadow Pros, Bono and Enzo.
So we've spoken to some of the production team here at Gfinity about what actually goes into creating a production of this size, but what's it like for a racer?
It's great. The atmosphere around here, it feels great. It's nice to have such a stage. I think for sim racing it's one of the biggest stage. It's the biggest stage for sure. Yeah, it's great to be here in general.
So the whole preparation at home is already big with making the setups and everything, so that's basically what you prepare for 3 weeks to be absolutely ready here. So you have the same equipment at home and you try and make the rig as similar as possible to what you have at home, but that's always very difficult to get right for some reason. It always feels a little bit different.
So you touched a little bit on adjudication, and we spoke to Rob earlier on about how adjudication differs between real-world racing and sim racing. Could you talk about that from your perspective as a racer?
They do take it very seriously. They look at everything. They look at every single scenario and review it, so it's very serious. The penalties, they try and apply it in the same way as real life,
So you don't just turn up and race. What are the steps that goes into preparing for tomorrow, actually?
I try to chill as much as possible, sleep as much as possible, because sometimes when we are at home and we practice and we want to find things, we stay up late, like 1 or 2 a.m. So trying to get in the rhythm, go to sleep early. Many hours. It's really just that, I think.
There'll be 3 races at this event, and after the lights go out in Montreal, everyone is looking aggressive into turn 1. Later, the rain comes and there's contact among the front runners. Rasmussen takes the checkered flag, but is later awarded a 3-second penalty, having crossed the pit exit line. Enzo starts from P4 in race 2 and keeps his car intact through the first corner chaos, while those in front of him squabble for the top 3 places. After a stellar outlap, he finishes in provisional P3, only to be stripped of his first F1 podium following another adjudication. Silverstone's always a great track for overtaking, and there's no shortage of battles in this race, like this move around the outside of Tunitsa by Rasmussen, who looks dominant until lap 11, when Kiefer executes a textbook pass through the inside of Stowe for the win. Silverstone wasn't the best race for our shadow drivers, with both of them finishing outside of the top 10, but with Bono and Enzo banking solid points earlier in the event, they head home at 8th and 13th in the standings respectively. Exciting stuff. Back to me in the studio.
As ever, incredible action from the F1 eSports drivers there. Matt, you were there at the Gfinity Arena to provide your expertise. What was the atmosphere like from where you were sitting?
In terms of the atmosphere, tense, absolute tension, and you can hear sometimes, because now we've got the team radio, so the guys speak to their engineers but in backstage, but everyone sat in the audience can just hear these people saying some pretty interesting words occasionally, but it is a very tense atmosphere purely because there's so much money on the line.
Of course, yeah. Now, Matt, this is a tough question. Do you have a favourite season in Formula One?
For me, I'm a Schumi fanboy through and through. Ever since I first started watching and seeing him winning, I decided, right, yeah, he's the one for me. And when he came back in 2010 and announced it, even though he didn't do particularly well, it was great to see him back. And then I think the year later, he scored his one and only podium, which was emotional.
Well, we're about to take a trip down memory lane and check out just how much McLaren's Formula One cars and the medium of gaming have changed in the last few decades.
Motorsport and video games. Two expressions of technology that refuse to stay still, innovating and evolving before our eyes. Each one looking for the next breakthrough to take it closer to perfection. Also, they're both just really, really fun, aren't they? Chances are, if your interest in Formula One goes back a decade or two, your interest in F1 games goes back a bit too. From the very first title in 1991 up to present day, we've watched the medium grow up, find new ways to excite us and move closer to reality.
We've also watched McLaren's Formula One cars change with the times, from the massive Honda V12 powering Senna to his last World Championship in '91 through to the hybrid era of modern times. From simple front wings to gradually more complex aerodynamic designs, important safety breakthroughs like the HANS device and the Halo. And of course, some truly iconic livery designs. Let's head to Silverstone now for a race through the ages. One lap, every McLaren ever to feature in F1 games. It all began in the 16-bit era, where the top-down perspective quickly gave way to a third-person camera, and Senna ruled the track. Grand Prix 2 gave us our first taste of 3D racing, and the power of the new PlayStation took the graphics to a whole new level by '95. By 98, the level of simulation was seriously deep, first with Grand Prix 3, then EA's F1 Challenge the following year. PlayStation 2 gave us a big step forward in visuals, but it couldn't convey just how shiny Kimi and Juan Pablo's cars were in 06.
Well done, your consistent driving is moving up the...
Codemasters acquired the F1 license in 2010, and their yearly releases have charted several world champions' times at McLaren, given birth to an F1 eSports scene, and provided countless hours of tense racing for gamers worldwide.
When within 1 second of the car ahead and in the DRS zone.
From pixels to photorealism and 2-button controllers to force feedback steering wheels, F1 games have come a pretty long way, haven't they? And those liveries bring back some memories. The classic red and white, the sleek silver and black, right up to our current papaya orange.
Ah, memories. Back to Shay in the studio.
Not gonna lie, I'm still pretty impressed by how good Grand Prix 3 looks after nearly 20 years. Some great McLaren memories through the ages there. Matt, can you remember the first time you played a Formula 1 game?
When I was about 4, maybe? I don't know the exact name of it, but I do remember playing some of the F1 games where they had a bit more freedom of creativity, where you could unlock special maps and could have a gold car that goes 1,000,000 miles an hour and things like that. So yeah, I do remember it and being completely enticed and being able to win by myself rather than just watching the television. Again, competitive spirit, even when I was 4 apparently.
And were you a natural at it, or did you end up in the gravel trap?
Natural, of course. If I say anything else, I don't think I'll be in a job.
Well, if you end up with a helmet full of sand or a front wing that looks like it's been through a mulcher after every passing move, our latest sim racing school class will ease the pain.
Overtaking. It's the best part about racing. A clear, tangible demonstration of just how much quicker you are than that chump in the other car. And for onlookers, the ultimate spectacle of skill, respect, split-second decision-making. Stacked it. Looks like someone needs a crash course in getting past opponents. Let's do that now. As the great Murray Walker once said, you might not think that's cricket, and it's not. It's motor racing. And as he also, rather more pertinently said, catching up is one thing, getting past is quite another. In other words, before you can even think about slipping one down the inside, you need to catch up with the driver in front. In a perfect world, this just means driving faster than them until you're pressed up against their back bumper, but sadly, it never ends up being quite that simple in practice. For starters, you'll want to use the slipstream of the car in front to make up the ground between you, so stay lined up as close to their car as you can. In high downforce disciplines like Formula 1 and other open wheelers, the cars disrupt the air so much as they move through it that it actually slows down the car behind, like one boat following in another's wake on the water. That means even if you've got the pace advantage over the car in front, it can be tricky to follow closely behind. If your car has an ERS deployment option or different fuel mixes, now's the time to whack them on and turn the fuel up to max, so you'll counteract the dirty air. You won't want to do this for very long though, so it's important to get the move done quickly. Get within a couple of car lengths, then get ready to pounce. Now that you've reeled them into within 2 car lengths, it's time to actually line yourself up in preparation for making the overtake. How you do this totally depends on context, however. Here's the easiest way. If you're close at the beginning of a straight, tuck into their slipstream until you're about to make contact, then just pull out and make the move before the braking zone of the next turn. Usually, you'll want to pull out on the inside of them. If you don't get close enough until the end of a straight, repeat the procedure as above, but keep in mind that you've got the element of surprise on your side. There's no need to telegraph your move early if you're not intending to pass until the braking zone. The defending driver's only allowed to move across the track once to block you, so watch out for that move and adjust accordingly. Now's the time. It's your moment. You've pulled out on the inside of your competitor heading into the turn. Now, in order to make the move stick, you need to hit the apex. If you overshoot the corner, you'll leave a gap for them to repass you, and since you're off the racing line, you need to brake earlier than usual. There's no precise metric for how much earlier, that's where the aforementioned split-second decision-making comes in. It is important to keep half an eye on the other car in case they try something crazy through the turn to repass you, and remember you're both required to leave a car's width of space for each other on the track at all times. If you get on the power too early and wheel spin, you'll be a sitting duck on the next straight and all your hard work will have been for nothing. Now we're on to more advanced manoeuvres. Let's say the other car moved to the inside of the braking zone to block your pass. Now you're faced with the option of biding your time and waiting for an easier opportunity, or to try and get the move done from the outside. This one requires more compliance and more awareness from the other driver than overtaking up the inside. You use your track advantage to brake later than the other driver, staying level or ideally ahead as you both turn into the apex, then force them to give you room on corner exit and accelerate away in the lead. This gets a lot easier if you're turning into S's, because suddenly the outside of one turn becomes the inside of the next, and you're perfectly positioned for the second half of the chicane. And with that, you're a verified Ayrton Senna, able to pounce on opponents, catch them unawares, and make even the unlikeliest moves stick. We're exaggerating. You have got the basics to practice with though, and practice makes for much fewer race-ruining balked pass attempts, as the famous saying goes.
Love a good outside pass. Thanks, Phil. And now, Matt, your channel's brought you close to the Formula One glitterati on many occasions, so we thought we'd find out how well you know one of our favourite drivers.
Hi Matt, how are you? Question number 1. Can you guess where I am right now? There's one thing in this video that might give it away.
Him? Firstly, I'm great, thanks Lando. Mexico?
Yeah?
Yes! Come on!
Amazing. Next question.
Question number 2. What is my favourite snack food?
Snack food?
Yeah.
Oh, why couldn't that have been drink?
Right?
Okay, I'm going to go with pasta.
That's wrong. And
I know he likes pasta though.
Is pasta a snack food?
I know, I just panicked. We went around his house once and he showed me a fridge full of pasta, so that's what I went with.
It's kind of a brag that you got to go to his house.
This is when he was an F2 driver.
It's fine. So it's salad cream?
Oh,
Like,
how? That's not a snack food.
That's not a snack food.
I've been done over here. Salad cream. That's his snack food.
Question number 3. Who am I describing? He's kind of got longish hair, from Spain. He's a junior, drives in Formula One.
From Spain? Mm-hmm. Long hair? Antonio Giovinazzi was the only one I can think of that has long hair. He doesn't live in Italy, unless he was born in Spain. I don't, Carlos Sainz, obviously.
I was hoping.
He has long hair as well.
Yes, you're all right.
I don't deserve a clap.
It took you a while, but
Yeah,
it's
it
fine.
did.
I'll allow it.
Question number 4. What is my favourite McLaren car to drive?
I'm going to say because he has a 570. I'm going to go with that.
No, it isn't.
What was
It's
it?
the MCL 34.
Oh, that's an F1 car. Oh, I've been, again,
Duped.
this is
Sorry.
ridiculous. It's fine, salad cream and that it's fine.
That's fine. I think
2 out of 4 and
is
2 of the
not
questions
bad.
were slightly hazy, so
Yeah,
I'll give myself 4 out of 4. Okay, perfect, thanks.
I mean, that's not how it works, but it's fine.
In my head it does.
I think we can all agree Matt aced that, but beyond the drivers, how familiar is he with the rest of the teams? Matt, I know that you were face scanned in for Formula One 2019, but can you identify these other team members that we've spotted in the game?
Brilliant.
Oh my God.
Yeah, thanks for picking that one out.
So, who is this?
So this is any famous face.
It is
Snoop
indeed.
Dogg?
You're right.
Oh my God, I'm right.
Right on something, yes.
Queen Elizabeth?
Indeed.
How did you do this? Oh my goodness. The name escapes me. Why is the name escaping me?
What?
I know.
What?
Don't do this to me. I'm not a big film person. Tom Hanks.
Oh, like I was literally just about to say, you were close.
I had you fooled that entire time.
And now to get to know you better, we have some would you rather dilemmas. So, you ready? These?
Sure.
So, these are all right. Would you rather involuntarily grin like Danny Rick all day, every day, or only be able to express joy in the manner of Kimi Räikkönen?
Danny Rick.
Yeah.
I smile a lot anyway, so I don't think it'd be too different because I enjoy my job. So.
That's fair. Would you rather disappoint Toto Wolff or your own father?
My own father, 100%. I'm not going anywhere near Toto Wolff. Lovely guy, but scary, I think, on the wrong side.
Would you rather have Vettel's Crazy Frog impression as your ringtone or Räikkönen's every time you get a WhatsApp message?
Kimi Räikkönen. I mean, I would voluntarily change it to that if I could, if I knew how to. The bois every day of the week.
Would you rather race one season of Formula One and win the Drivers' Championship, or have a guaranteed seat for the next 10 years but never podium?
Win the championship.
Yeah.
I think, because then you're like a living legend. But I guess if you don't get a podium, I'm not going to put any names. There's one that came straight to my head, but I'm just going to leave that for the viewers to decide who I thought of. Yeah, no, definitely the championship.
Amazing. Would you rather have Murray Walker commentate on your life, or have David Coulthard grab you for an interview once per day when you least expect it?
That's a good thing. Murray Walker commentating on my life is a dream. I would love that. Just going down Tesco and bam, that'd be amazing.
It would make everything feel like way more epic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Murray Walker, what a legend.
All right, last one. Would you rather get trapped in a lift with Eddie Jordan for a week, or dress in his clothes for a year?
Wow. Okay. Dressing his clothes for a year, I think. Yeah, I've embarrassed myself enough on the internet. I think this wouldn't really do too much.
Awesome. So that's it for the would you rathers and all the other torture. Back to the sensible stuff. Thank you so much for being a good sport and dealing with all of the off-the-cuff stuff we threw at you.
It's all good. Good fun.
Awesome. And thanks to Lando for taking the time out of his very busy schedule. Speaking of which, as part of BBC Children in Need this year, we're giving you the chance to race against Lando himself. Visit the link on screen now for more information. The Shadow project is well underway, with Josh Perwin already qualifying as the Asia Pacific contestant in the finals this December. The Logitech G Challenge European finals are about to kick off too. I spoke to Vincent Burrell from Logitech G for all the juicy details. So what have been some of the standout moments of the G Challenge 2019 so far?
Look, I think it all started at Indy 500, where we had the Shadow team and the FA Racing team do an exhibit race. From that point on, we've had now races all over the world, from Latin America to Asia Pacific, Australia, Japan, Singapore, and then back to Europe, where, racing kind of all started. Last weekend, we actually just had the final for Latin America and Mexico. That was a super exciting weekend. We had an amazing venue. We had about 3,000 people come for the race. PAX Australia is where we had our Asia Pacific final. And there again, we had the finalists, the 8 finalists for Asia Pacific coming from all over that region. Race, but also then interact with the fans and people who are just interested and curious about what this is about, and being able to sit in the rigs and try it out themselves. We see folks who come from Argentina, and that's 100% of their pastime. They've never been to a physical race, but they dream of racing, and suddenly they find themselves competing on a global level.
What do you think the turnout will be like for the European regionals?
Oh, I think the European regional final are going to be fantastic. So we're going to have them in Cologne during Motorsports World. So obviously there's going to be a lot of fans of racing and cars who will be there for the weekend. And we'll also have a great turnout. Lando Norris is going to be joining us as well as for an appearance and meeting the drivers and the crowd. So I think the turnout is going to be good.
So we talk about sim racing as an industry being in its infancy. This is the second year that the G Challenge has been around for. Where do you think the sim racing industry will be in 5 years from now?
This is the future, and the reality is it's not that motorsports racing is going away. I think it's evolving and changing, but what's fundamentally changing is how the audience wants to interact with any sport. And You look at the millennials, the Gen Zs, and even the new generation that's coming up now. They have been born in a world where the interaction is taken for granted. They don't want to just sit back and watch. Fans on Twitch who watch gaming, they get to chat in the chat room on the side, but they also get to provide tip and show their love for what's happening. And the caster gets to respond in real time, right? So you are a full part of the show. And I think this is what's changing in terms of behaviors and how people are thinking about sports in general. What's unique with racing is that there is such a strong parallel between racing in a sim rig and racing in the real world. You're still holding a steering wheel, you're still seated, in a racing rig. And when you are there watching your screen, the immersion is pretty amazing. So that's why you actually see so many of the racers today, like Lando and Verstappen and so on, spending so much time in their sim rigs to train because it translates so well. The fans of tomorrow will all race, at least in the digital world, which was not the case in the past. A lot of the fans of Formula One would just go to the races but never had a chance to actually get a taste of what this was. But fans want that today.
And just lastly, can you tell us about what makes, a stunning sim racing athlete compared to other esports athletes?
Overall, I will say for all esports, what's fascinating to me is the level of cognitive performance, the ability to focus and be so focused and tune out everything else, and the speed at which they're able to execute. When you are sim racing, like it's almost 100% based on the driver's decision because he's the only one there. There's less of the real world challenges that can happen that you see, every time there's a real race. And so when I look at those athletes, it's really beautiful to watch. Those athletes are definitely not. It's a physical effort, but a different kind of physical effort that you would have if you are doing real-world sports. And we've seen now more and more of those young esports athletes trying to do the transition, and some of them being pretty successful at it. They don't leave it behind, right? They don't leave their esports and sim racing behind, but they just extend their abilities.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the remainder of the G Challenge pans out this year. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me.
All right, thank you very much.
Good luck to everyone about to race in the European Logitech G Challenge. Fancy getting your hands on some brand new limited edition Shadow Project caps and beanies? These hats are available now at the Shadow online store. Follow the link in the description box to get one before they go. If you want your opinion to be featured in the next episode of Shadowcast, get in touch with us by leaving a comment here on YouTube or go to @McLaren Shadow on Instagram or Twitter. And now onto the Hot Lap. 4 brave challengers have answered the call so far and driven the Shadowcast Hot Lap Challenge. It's 1 lap of Silverstone in a McLaren 720S in R-Factor 2 with no second chances and some very strong competition. Rudy Van Buren still top with his 159.1, Bono Hewer stays in P2, while our non-pro racing driver guests Actual Vision and Chain Bear sit 3rd and 4th on our leaderboard respectively. Matt, where do you think you can slot in on there?
I actually don't know.
No.
It was an average lap, but I don't know. I don't know how good Actual Vision is at sim racing. I know he's a commentator, but I don't know if he does much sim racing. I'd like to beat Chain Bear. If I don't do that, then he's going to have some words to say to me, and I don't want them.
Right, well, let's take a look then, shall we? All right, walk me through it. What's happening?
Well, I've completely messed up turn 1 already because, I'm not even going to try and give myself excuses, but yeah, it was just getting used to it really. I'm looking at everything in a negative way, but it's reasonably clean. It's just not particularly fast at this point.
Yeah.
I guess it's Wellington Straight now. Silverstone's not particularly difficult to drive if you're in the zone. And then Magnussen Beckett's was okay, I think. I got onto the curb nicely there, but it's just washing out a bit and just not particularly used to the handling of the cars. You can see I'm just constantly having to correct myself, but an all right lap, but yeah.
That looks pretty decent, comparatively.
Yeah. That's just me, my competitive side going. I was 1 inch off the apex, so it was rubbish, but it was okay.
Right, well, let's take a look at your time, shall we?
Please.
See where you slotted. Nice! I am very impressed. So that's 2034.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 second off Bono. I will absolutely take
that.
that.
Absolutely.
I'll put that on my CV. That is fantastic. That's good to hear.
Competition time now, and we've got something really special courtesy of Logitech G this episode. Winner care package that includes the G920 racing wheel, the C922 Pro Stream webcam, and the Pro Gaming headset. Full T's and C's are in the description below. Now, for a chance to win all that, answer Matt's question.
True or false, have I been on the X Factor?
Well, thank you so much for joining me in the studio this episode. It was great having you on. You were a great guest.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get a round of applause for Matt, everybody. We've got plenty more lined up in the next episode, including more from our sim racing school and the Road to Shadow Project 2019 finals. And of course, we'll have another guest with us here in the studio to have a natter and try and topple Rudy's hot lap time. Can anyone do it? And there's only one way to find out, and that's by subscribing to the channel, hitting that bell to turn on notifications, and you can follow the very latest news from us as it happens by following @McLaren Shadow on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you so much for tuning in. Catch you next time.